I never expected her to remember my name, let alone everything else. The first time it happened, I thought she was just being polite. I was sitting at my friend Hamza's dining table, pretending to scroll through my phone while waiting for him to finish a call upstairs. The ceiling fan clicked every few seconds, slow and tired. Somewhere outside, a motorbike passed, then silence returned like it always did in their house after 10 p.m. She walked in carrying a tray of tea. "Wakas, sugar or no sugar?" she asked. I looked up too quickly. People usually ask beta or friend. Not my name. "No sugar," I said. She nodded as if she already knew that and placed the cup in front of me carefully, aligning the handle toward my right hand. A small thing. Almost nothing. But I noticed. She always did things like that. Hamza's mother wasn't the kind of woman people looked at twice in public. Mid-40s, maybe older. Simple clothes. Soft voice. The type neighbors described as respectable and then forgot about. But late at night, when the house grew quieter, she changed slightly, not in appearance, just in presence. She lingered in conversations longer, asked questions that didn't feel casual. "How are your studies going? You're eating properly, right? You look tired today." No one had asked me that last question in a long time. I shrugged. "Just assignments." She smiled, but her eyes stayed on me a second longer than necessary. I remember folding the edge of a napkin over and over while she sat across from me. Not nervous exactly, just aware. A strange awareness, like realizing someone was actually paying attention. Upstairs, Hamza laughed loudly into his phone, completely absorbed in whatever drama ruled his life that week. Downstairs felt different. Quiet. Safe. She poured herself tea, but didn't drink it immediately. Her fingers rested around the cup, warming them. I caught myself watching her hands, the faint lines near her knuckles, the silver ring she kept turning absent-mindedly. I looked away fast. Loneliness doesn't arrive loudly. It settles into routines. Mine looked like late-night walks back to my rented room, like typing messages to people I almost contacted and deleting them before sending. Like eating instant noodles while YouTube videos talked in the background just so the room wouldn't feel empty. Some nights, Hamza insisted I stay longer. Those nights meant another cup of tea, another quiet conversation with his mother while he disappeared upstairs. "You don't talk much," she said once. "Ido," he replied. "Just later." She laughed softly at that. Not teasing. Understanding. That laugh stayed with me longer than it should have. Weeks passed like that. Small moments stacking quietly. She remembered I hated cardamom in tea. She noticed when I cut my hair. Once, she handed me an umbrella before I even realized that it started raining outside. Normal things. Completely normal. Except I began timing my visits when I knew she'd be home. Except I noticed when she looked tired. Except sometimes, when she walked away, I found my eyes following her before I could stop them. One night, the electricity went out across the neighborhood. The house fell into darkness except for the faint glow of her phone flashlight. Hamza had already gone to sleep. She and I sat in the living room, lit by that small circle of white light. The ticking clock sounded louder than usual. "You should head home before it gets too late," she said gently. I stood, hesitated, then nodded. At the door, she handed me my jacket. Our fingers brushed, accidental, quick, but neither of us pulled away immediately. "Good night, Wakas," she said. The way she said it felt personal, almost careful. I walked home replaying that moment more times than I wanted to admit. When I reached my room, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. A single message appeared. "Did you reach safely?" I stared at the screen for a long time before realizing only one person would ask me that at midnight. I didn't reply to her message immediately. Not because I didn't want to. I just didn't know what replying meant. I typed "Yes, I'm home." Deleted it. Typed "Thank you." Deleted that too. After a minute, I finally sent, just reached. 3 dots appeared almost instantly. Good. It was very dark outside. That was it. No emoji. No extra words. Still, I stared at the screen longer than necessary, noticing how calm I felt reading something so simple. After that night, conversations shifted slightly. Nothing obvious. Nothing anyone else would notice. But something had moved. A few days later, Hamza wasn't home when I stopped by to return his charger. His mother opened the door, surprised but not uncomfortable. "Oh," she said softly. "He went out. You can leave it inside." I hesitated at the entrance. I should have left. Instead, I stepped in. The house smelled like onions frying and fresh coriander. Evening light slipped through the curtains, turning everything golden. She was tying her dupatta tighter around her shoulders as she walked back toward the kitchen. "You've eaten?" she asked. "Yeah." I lied automatically. She glanced at me, unconvinced, then handed me a knife. "Cut these." I stood beside her at the counter, chopping tomatoes while she stirred something on the stove. Our shoulders almost touched whenever either of us moved. Domestic silence settled between us. Comfortable, dangerous. "You cook a lot," I said. She smiled faintly. "You learn when people depend on you." The words lingered. After a moment, she added quietly, "After my husband passed, the house became very loud at first. Everyone visiting, everyone advising." She stirred slowly, then suddenly very quiet. I didn't know where to look. "I didn't know," I said. "It was years ago," she replied. Hamza was still in school. Her voice wasn't sad, just tired in a way that felt permanent. I nodded, pretending to focus on the tomatoes, even though I'd already finished cutting them. "I moved here last year," I said, surprising myself. "My parents think I'm still preparing for exams." I laughed awkwardly. "Truth is, I just needed space." She looked at me, then properly looked, like she was measuring something deeper than my words. "Sometimes leaving is the only honest thing," she said. We stood there without speaking. The stove clicked softly. A spoon tapped the side of the pan. Outside, children shouted somewhere down the street. Ordinary sounds. Yet my chest felt tight, because suddenly I became aware of how strange this was, standing alone in my best friend's kitchen, talking about loneliness with his mother. I imagined Hamza walking in. I imagined explaining why I stayed. The thought made me step back slightly. She noticed. A small pause formed between us. "You should sit," she said gently, placing a cup of tea on the table. "You look tired again." We drank tea across from each other, neither rushing to finish. She wrapped both hands around her cup the way she always did, eyes lowering occasionally as if deciding whether to say more. "You remind me of someone who carries too much quietly," she said. I laughed under my breath. "I think everyone does. Not everyone admits it." Her gaze held mine a second too long. I looked down, folding the corner of a tissue into sharp lines just to have something to do with my hands. The room felt warmer than before. Risk hovered there, unnamed but present. She was my friend's mother. Older, someone I was supposed to respect from a distance. And yet, sitting there felt easier than anywhere else. When I finally stood to leave, she walked me to the door. As I reached for my shoes, she adjusted my collar absent-mindedly, like correcting something small. Her fingers paused near my shoulder. Neither of us moved. Then she smiled softly, almost apologetically. "Take care of yourself," she said. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. After that evening in the kitchen, I told myself to slow down. I didn't stop visiting Hamza. That would have been obvious, but I tried arriving later, leaving earlier, keeping conversations normal. Safe. For a few days, it worked. She stayed polite, warm but careful. No late-night messages. No lingering conversations. The absence felt louder than anything she had done before. Hamza noticed first. "You've been quiet lately," he said one afternoon while we sat in his room, playing a game neither of us cared about winning. "Assignments," I replied. He shrugged. "Emmy asked about you yesterday." My hands paused on the controller. "What did she say?" "Just why you haven't come by." He said it casually, but something tightened in my chest. I laughed it off, pretending it meant nothing. Still, that night, I found myself walking toward their house again. I almost turned back at the gate. Almost. She opened the door before I knocked, like she had already seen me through the window. "Oh," she said softly. "You came." Not hello. Not come in. Just that. "You came." Inside, the television murmured quietly. Hamza wasn't home. He went out with friends, she explained. I nodded, suddenly aware of how late it was. "I can come back another time." But she stepped aside. "It's fine." The word lingered between us longer than necessary. We sat in the living room without turning on the main lights. Only a lamp glowed near the corner, leaving parts of the room in shadow. She handed me tea without asking how I wanted it. No cardamom. She remembered. Neither of us spoke much at first. The ticking clock returned, steady and accusing. I noticed small things instead. The way she tucked her feet under herself on the sofa, how she kept adjusting the edge of her sleeve, how her gaze drifted toward me and then away, like she was deciding something. I thought maybe she began, then stopped. I waited. She shook her head lightly. Nothing. Silence again. My mind filled the gaps. Maybe she regretted the closeness. Maybe she realized how strange this looked. Maybe I had imagined everything. I set my cup down too carefully. I didn't want to bother you, I said. You weren't bothering me. Quick answer. Almost defensive. Our eyes met, and neither of us looked away this time. Something fragile stretched between us. Awareness, maybe, or danger. She exhaled slowly. Wakas, you should spend more time with people your age. The sentence landed gently, but still hurt. I nodded. Yeah, probably. But neither of us moved. Outside, a car passed. Headlights briefly filled the room, illuminating her face fully. She looked tired, nervous, younger somehow, as if she was arguing with herself. I imagined what this looked like from outside. A woman in her 40s sitting late at night with her son's friend. Too close. Too comfortable. I stood abruptly. I should go. She stood too, almost at the same time. At the doorway, we both reached for the handle. Our hands collided. Stayed there, neither pulling back. Her breath caught, barely audible. My thoughts scattered. Don't misread this. Don't ruin it. Don't. She looked up at me, eyes searching, unsure. Close enough that I noticed the faint scent of soap, the tiny line near her lip when she was nervous. For a second, the world narrowed to just that space between us. A step closer and footsteps outside. Voices near the gate. We moved apart instantly. Too fast. Too obvious. She opened the door wider, creating distance that hadn't existed seconds before. Hamza's laughter echoed from outside as he walked in with friends. Everything snapped back into place. Normal. Safe. I left soon after, barely remembering when I said goodbye. But as I walked home, one thought refused to settle. We hadn't done anything, and yet it felt like we almost had. After that night, I stopped going over as often. Not intentionally. At least that's what I told myself. Assignments. Deadlines. Random excuses that sounded reasonable enough to repeat out loud. But the truth sat somewhere quieter. I didn't trust myself around her anymore. And maybe I didn't trust what she felt either. Days passed without messages. Then one evening Hamza called. Bro, can you drop these notes at home? I forgot them. Emmy's alone. I hesitated just long enough for him to notice. You're nearby anyway, he added. I said yes before thinking too much. The street was unusually calm when I arrived. The air carried that early winter chill that makes every sound sharper. Lights glowed warmly through their living room window. She opened the door slowly, surprise flickering across her face before settling into a soft smile. I wasn't expecting you. Hamza sent his notes. She took them, but didn't step aside immediately. For a second, we just stood there, unsure how to behave with each other now. You can come in, she said finally. Her voice sounded careful. Inside, the house felt smaller than before. Or maybe I was more aware of it, aware of her presence in every corner. She wrapped a shawl around her shoulders. I was about to go for a walk. The electricity keeps going out again. I nodded. I'll leave then. She looked at me, almost amused. You don't have to run away every time you see me. The words landed gently, but they exposed something I hadn't admitted even to myself. I'm not running. A pause. Then walk with me. We walked down a quiet street side by side. No traffic, just distant dogs barking and the hum of generators from nearby houses. Our steps matched unconsciously. She spoke first. You've been avoiding the house. Not accusing, just observant. I kicked a small stone along the road. I thought maybe it was better. For whom? I didn't answer. The question hung between us. She sighed, looking ahead instead of at me. Wakas, you're Hamza's friend. I know. And I'm, she stopped herself, older. People notice things. I laughed quietly, but there was no humor in it. People always notice things, even when nothing's happening. She slowed her pace. That's exactly why, she said. We reached a small park at the corner, empty except for one flickering streetlight and a bench beneath it. She sat down first, leaving space beside her. I sat too, close enough to feel the warmth from her shoulder. Cold air, quiet breathing, shared silence that felt heavier than conversation. I didn't mean for anything to feel complicated, she said. Her hands twisted together in her lap. I'd never seen her nervous before. You didn't do anything wrong, I said quickly. She turned toward me then. But something changed. I swallowed. Neither of us looked away. I'll wait for you to come, she admitted softly. And when you don't, the house feels empty again. The honesty hit harder than I expected. My chest tightened. Words crowded my throat but refused to form properly. I try not to think about it, she continued. I tell myself you're just being kind. That I'm imagining. She stopped. A long breath. Her voice dropped. Tell me honestly, am I imagining it? The question stayed between us, fragile and dangerous. I noticed everything at once. Her fingers trembling slightly, the way she avoided blinking, the quiet hope mixed with fear in her expression. I leaned closer without deciding to. Too close. Close enough that answering would change everything. My heart pounded, but my voice barely came out. And suddenly I realized there was no safe answer left. The night held its breath, waiting to hear what I would say. I never answered her question. Not properly. The words reached my throat, hovered there. Yes, no, I don't know. All of them dangerous in different ways. Instead, footsteps approached from the far end of the park. A couple passed by, laughing loudly, their presence breaking whatever fragile space had formed around us. She leaned back slightly, as if waking from something. It's late, she said, standing up. Just like that. The moment folded into itself. We walked back without mentioning it again. Our shoulders no longer brushed. The silence felt different now. Not comfortable, not tense, just unfinished. At her gate, she smiled politely. Thank you for walking with me. Polite. Careful. Almost formal. I nodded. Good night. She didn't ask if I reached home safely that night. The next week felt wrong. I visited Hamza twice. Both times she stayed busy in another room. Plates clattered louder than usual in the kitchen. Conversations stayed short. How are your studies? Good. That's nice. No lingering eye contact. No quiet pauses. It was like she had stepped back into a role she suddenly remembered she was supposed to play. Hamza noticed nothing. I noticed everything. I caught myself listening for her footsteps, waiting for her to sit down nearby, watching doorways without meaning to. But she never stayed long enough. Then one evening, while Hamza scrolled through his phone, he mentioned it casually. Oh yeah, Amy might go to Lahore for a while. My head snapped up. Why? He shrugged. Some family thing. Maybe longer. My aunt keeps asking her to move there. Says she shouldn't live alone forever. Live alone forever. The words echoed strangely. I laughed lightly. That's good, I guess. Yeah, he said. Honestly, she's been different lately. Quiet. Keeps saying she needs a change. Something tightened in my chest. A change. I walked home earlier than usual that night. Days passed. Her window lights turned off earlier. Sometimes the house looked completely dark when I walked by. Once I saw a suitcase near the hallway through the open door. I almost went in, almost asked. Instead, I kept walking. My phone stayed silent. No messages. No questions about whether I had eaten. No reminders to take an umbrella. The absence felt deliberate. One night, I opened our chat. Scrolled back through simple conversations. Did you reach? Drink tea before sleeping. Take care. I typed. Did I do something wrong? I stared at the message. Read again. Then deleted it. Another attempt. Are you leaving? Delete. The cursor blinked on an empty screen. I realized I didn't know what right I had to ask anything at all. She was my friend's mother. A woman rebuilding her life. Someone who had already lost too much once. Maybe stepping away was her way of protecting both of us. Maybe I had imagined the closeness. Maybe she had too. A few evenings later, I passed their house and saw the living room light on. The front door slightly open. I slowed down, stopped at the gate. My hand almost reached for it, but I stayed outside, waiting, listening. Then, after a long minute, I turned and walked away. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. I didn't plan to go back. That was the decision I repeated to myself for almost 2 weeks. Life adjusted around her absence faster than I expected. Classes filled my mornings. Noise filled my evenings. I answered messages I used to ignore. I even laughed more around friends. But certain habits refused to disappear. I still walked past their street, still glanced at the living room window, still slowed down without admitting why. One evening, just before sunset, I saw the gate open. Suitcases stood near the doorway. My feet stopped moving before my mind caught up. She was there, locking the front door. For a moment, I considered turning away, pretending I hadn't seen her. But she looked up. Our eyes met. No surprise this time, just recognition and something softer. "You heard," she said gently. I nodded. Hamza told me. She adjusted the edge of her shawl, buying herself a second. "I'm leaving tonight. Only for a while." Only for a while. The words sounded uncertain even to her. I stepped closer to the gate, close enough to speak quietly. "You didn't say goodbye." She gave a small smile that didn't fully reach her eyes. "I thought it might be easier." "For whom?" I asked. The same question she once asked me. She exhaled slowly. "For both of us." Silence settled between us, familiar and heavy. The evening call to prayer echoed faintly in the distance, filling the pauses we couldn't. I looked at the suitcase, then back at her. I kept thinking about that night in the park, I said. Her gaze dropped briefly. So did I. My hands felt restless. I shoved them into my pockets, just to stop myself from reaching out. "I didn't answer you," I admitted. She nodded. "You didn't have to, but I wanted to." The word surprised even me. She finally looked directly at me, fully, openly, without the careful distance she'd been maintaining. "I was scared," I said quietly. "Not of you. Of what it meant. Of ruining something good." Her expression softened. "I know," she said. "I was scared too." A small laugh escaped her, almost embarrassed. "At my age, you think you understand your heart. Then suddenly it behaves like it forgot all the rules." We both smiled faintly at that. The air felt lighter, even though nothing had been solved. "I didn't imagine it," she said after a moment. Not a question this time. "No, Utopia." The honesty sat gently between us. No drama. No confession dressed as romance. Just acknowledgement. She stepped closer to the gate, close enough that I could see the tired warmth in her eyes, the same look that had made me stay for tea all those nights. "You deserve someone who can stand beside you without hesitation," she said. "And you deserve—" I stopped, searching for words that wouldn't sound selfish. "Someone who doesn't make you feel guilty for being happy." Her lips curved into a small, grateful smile. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she reached through the gate and lightly squeezed my hand. Not lingering, not desperate, just human, warm, real. I held her hand back briefly, feeling the weight of everything we hadn't done and everything we understood anyway. She nodded once. "Okay," she said softly, and somehow that felt like the truest ending we could give the moment. Time didn't rush after she left. It stretched. Weeks folded into months the way ordinary days always do, quietly, without announcement. Hamza complained about missing home-cooked food. Classes grew heavier. Winter softened into spring. Life continued, but certain absences never fully disappear. They just learn to sit beside you. I stopped walking past her street every evening. Not intentionally. My routine simply changed. Morning classes meant earlier sleep, earlier mornings, stronger coffee instead of late-night tea. Still, sometimes at exactly 8:47 a.m., while waiting for the campus bus, I caught myself checking my phone. That had been the time she usually sent messages. "Did you eat? Take an umbrella. Don't skip breakfast." Small care. Ordinary care. The kind that stays long after conversations end. Months later, Hamza mentioned casually, "Ami's back." He said it while scrolling his phone, unaware of how the words landed. I nodded, pretending neutrality. "For good." "Yeah." She said Lahore wasn't home. I didn't ask more. But that evening, without planning it, my feet carried me toward their house again. The gate looked the same. The bougainvillea slightly overgrown. The porch light glowing warm against the dusk. For a moment, I stood outside like a stranger remembering a familiar place. Then I knocked. She opened the door almost immediately. No surprise this time, just recognition. In relief, she didn't try to hide. "You came," she said. The same words as before, but softer now. "Lighter." I was nearby. I replied, even though we both knew that wasn't true. She stepped aside. Inside, nothing had changed, and everything had. A new cushion on the sofa. Different curtains. The faint smell of fresh paint. The house felt lived in again. She asked. I smiled. Without cardamom. She laughed, a real laugh this time, and went to the kitchen. I followed without thinking. We stood there again, side by side, preparing tea like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. No hositashchen. No invisible line waiting to be crossed. Just familiarity earned over time and distance. "You look well," she said. "So do you." And it was true. She seemed calmer, lighter, as if leaving had helped her return to herself. We carried the tea outside and sat on the small bench near the gate, the one I'd never noticed before all this began. Evening air, passing neighbors, everyday life moving around us without suspicion. Our shoulders touched naturally. No tensión, no urgency, just presence. "I missed our conversations," she admitted. "I missed being asked if I ate," I said. She smiled at that, shaking her head slightly. We talked about simple things. Hamza's job search, my exams, a neighbor's noisy generator. The kind of conversation that doesn't try to prove anything. At some point, silence settled between us again. But it felt different now. Peaceful. Chosen. Her hand rested on the bench between us. Mine moved closer, slowly, naturally, until our fingers touched. Neither of us reacted. We just stayed there. No promisi spoken. No future explained. Life wasn't perfect. People still talked. Timing was still complicated. The world outside remained exactly as it had always been. But something inside us had changed. We weren't hiding from the feeling anymore. We were simply living beside it. Together. She glanced at me, eyes warm. "Black coffee tomorrow morning?" she asked lightly. I nodded. 8:47. She smiled. The kind meant only for someone who knows the story behind the number. And for the first time, nothing felt unfinished. Just quiet. Just real. Just enough. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?